So silence your cell phones, hold your applause, and tune into the truth.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame in.
From the 315 to the world, this is the Heel to Face podcast.
The cream of the crop! Wow, man, freaked out!
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Heel to the Face.
I said, are you ready?
From Armory Square in downtown Syracuse, New York, let's send it now to Dustin, Brandon, and Jared.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
This is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast, coming off of the final Monday Night Raws and SmackDowns under, I guess, some sort of old era. But either way, next week is premiere week, and it'll be a brand new SmackDown in general. Looks like a brand new Raw logo as well. We'll talk about all that and more. As always, to my right, you can find him on Twitter, Icebreaker21. His name is Brandon Clements. Myself, at KRockJared, on both Twitter and Instagram, and the show on Twitter at Heel to the Face. The final weeks of Raw and SmackDown in their forms that we currently know, the Raw and SmackDown sets are, from what I've been told, going to retire, going to get some brand new sets heading into both Raw and SmackDown next week. Do you think we're going to get brand new sets when it comes to, let's say, 2 sets, or you think we're just going to get one brand new one set?
I think it's going to be 2 separate sets, and I also believe we're going to get Pyro back in some way, shape, or form. That's what I've been reading, so I'm excited about that.
Now, you saw this past week when they were advertising the matches for Monday Night Raw this past week. It looks like we got a new Monday Night Raw logo. Not too different. Obviously, the SmackDown logo not too different, but it looks like there's like some sort of diamond shape, and the Raw is more curved instead of a straight Raw logo. Looks like we're getting a little bit of a different Raw logo. Brock Lesnar will be on Monday Night Raw in Phoenix this Monday night as part of the show. I think overall it's all about SmackDown because they're trying to really hype up SmackDown by making it an important Raw as well because it's WWE Premiere Week. It is the season premiere. And we were talking about this last week. Does anybody watch wrestling in an episodic format like a traditional television show? Well, apparently if you do, a brand new season starts on Monday. I always thought the season premiere, if you will, was the night after WrestleMania.
That's what I always thought it was, too. It's like a new year, new rebirth.
And I always thought if you were to actually have a season premiere, wouldn't it take place in January when the actual anniversary of Raw is? Because that's when Raw began in 1993. So I don't understand how this arbitrary day as the last week of September / the first week of October is going to be the Raw premiere. Because that's not when Raw started.
I think it's just because, SmackDown.
They just want to make the whole thing fresh.
Yeah, we're just going to revamp everything. Obviously, SmackDown's going to be on Friday nights on Fox next week. So I'm excited to see how that's going to go. Other news and notes I wanted to talk about. I was just kind of reading some things before the show and saw some news the last few days. Johnny Nitro, huh? That's pretty cool.
John Morrison, Johnny Nitro, looks like he might be returning to WWE. He's had quite the stint in Impact Wrestling, but I think it's time for him to return to WWE. He made a kind of a name for himself since he's left the WWE in the Glow show, as well as doing a few other things. What do you think the impact that Johnny Nitro could have? Do you see him just back muddled in the middle of the pack again? Or do you see this as because, they're hyping it up and making a big deal, do you see a whole new Johnny Nitro, now that he's been a former world champion, I guess, obviously an Impact, but a former world champion nonetheless? Do you see now more of a main event Nitro coming to WWE?
I see it kind of like a Drew McIntyre kind of deal. Hopefully not as, lately not as,
So more like
bad.
a Dolph Ziggler kind of situation.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, Drew McIntyre when he came back, and started, worked his way up again. That was fire. He did a great job in NXT, and then got to the main roster. I mean, until the whole Shane McMahon thing kind of happened, he was doing pretty big things. So I expect that for Nitro, Morrison. What are we gonna, name him? Speaking of,
we gotta just keep it Johnny Nitro, right? Because you'd have to assume that they're gonna want to build off the popularity he had before. You don't want to completely rebrand this guy. You want to use what you have in the past.
Yeah, I would say definitely Nitro, and I'm actually
or Morrison. I mean, he was both in WWE.
I always liked him as Nitro.
I don't think it's going to be Johnny Mundo or Johnny Impact.
No, it's definitely not going to be that. I kind of want to see. I don't know if they're going to do this. We won't know. There's no details of when he's actually going to debut. I mean, they're kind of keeping that under the rug.
Well, he's still kind of negotiating in the terms as of last night.
There's still kind of like the minor details of the contract, but kind of what I want to see is like Johnny Wrestling versus Johnny Nitro kind of thing. You know, that would be kind of cool down in the NXT maybe.
So you think he's going to go to NXT if he comes back?
I'm not saying that. Honestly, he's in that area where it could go either way. I mean, I don't want to say he's definitely going to, be on the main roster right away. I would assume so, but at the same time, maybe they want to, because he's been on the indie circuit for a while, kind of maybe, kind of bring him back in as NXT, maybe high-end NXT, and then, have him there for a short stint, bring him up to the main roster, and then go from there. Another guy, not to jump around too much, another guy whose contract is up and Ring of Honor has been trying to keep him is Matt Taven. So we'll see what happens with Matt Taven. I believe WWE is going to have the best offer. I guess Ring of Honor reportedly offered him a ton of money. I think it was more
as much as they could offer.
Yeah, it was like 3 times what NXT main stars get, which is pretty good.
I think NXT main stars make about 100, maybe to 150,
which is not bad at all.
Well, I mean, that's an NXT. Yeah, that's an NXT star. So, I mean, you say a Ring of Honor, they could probably offer maybe 300, maybe 200.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I think WWE is going. I think they're going to go hard after him. It seems like that's the name that they really want there. So we'll have to see what happens. But a lot of interesting things going on. I mean, I was watching the football game, this on Thursday night, and they were hyping up SmackDown pretty good.
It was on Fox this past week.
It was. So they're really pushing it.
I was watching football this past Sunday, and they were hyping up SmackDown pretty much every commercial break that I saw with NXT. So one thing that we've seen in the first couple weeks of NXT, and one thing that Triple H and the rest of WWE says is going to stay, and that is 205 Live. There was lots of strong rumors that before NXT made it to the USA Network as a part of strengthening up the content. Obviously, we saw in NXT some of the 205 Live guys like Oni Lorcan and all those. But either way, 205 Live is going to be its own show. It's going to move to Friday nights. They're still going to have it following the SmackDown taping. So Friday night at 10 o'clock is still going to be 205 Live. What do you think of this? The lack of thereof of moving 205 Live as part of just the NXT brand, keeping it its own thing.
I don't like it. I think they should. I think they should kind of merge it together. I think keeping the talent pretty fresh. I mean, some of those 205 live guys are pretty solid. I think they're good NXT contributors. So to me, it adds more depth to the show. So I don't get the premise behind it.
One of the only products of WWE that's actually not on national television, because now 205 or NXT is on the USA Network. Yep. 205 Live will still be the only product in which you compete exclusively on the WWE Network.
Now, speaking of NXT, did you notice that USA has it to 2 hours now?
Yes. Well, they have it to 2 hours, moving to next week.
So next week,
this past week was another 1 hour of USA Network. It reminds me a lot of Saturday Night Main Events of years and years past, where because of the USA Network having the first hour, the last 2 weeks, especially this week, has been a very front-loaded card. Without a doubt. Naturally. The main events and all the good matches are right when the show kicks off. I can imagine that won't be next week. They'll have to divvy out the matches a little bit and have the main event, let's say Adam Cole versus Matt Riddle. That's going to be quite the main event to go up against AEW for its inaugural week. 2 hours. Obviously, they had to go to the 2 hours with AEW. I'm kind of confused on why exactly they didn't do that right away, why they waited until the AEW week. Maybe it's all a ploy. Maybe the fact they wanted to get the jump start and having it on the USA Network to get the eyeballs, and then they wanted to have something still a little bit different because you don't want to be old hat because AEW is going to be brand new next week. NXT is going to be in their third week. You're going to say, I've already seen it. So they're going to have to throw something new out at you to kind of bring you in to watch NXT over AEW. So maybe that's why they held off the 2 hours to kind of still, maybe it was like a soft opening, to just beat AEW to the gun. And then the week of AEW, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that the NXT championship is on the line the very first week of AEW.
Absolutely not. That's definitely what it is. And I mean, they're putting a lot of good matches on. It's championship week next week in NXT. I feel like, let's see, you got Undisputed, you get the Undisputed Era in a tag team match against the Street Profits. And then you have, what's her face? Johnny Wrestling's wife.
Candice LeRae.
Candice LeRae. She's facing Shayna Baszler, and then obviously the main event's Riddle and Cole. So I mean that's a pretty good card. I think that was definitely a coincidence going against.
And I did notice this week we had this conversation before, but I did notice that NXT, both the USA and WWE Network sides of it, are combined together as one show on the network. I watched NXT this past week on the network, not on USA. So it is 100% commercial free in its 2-hour format, shrunk down to an hour and 25 minutes on the WWE Network. So. Your question answered of what would still be on the network. Well, it's all going to be on the network, and it's all on the network right after. So there's no lag or delay. We're not waiting in a month or 2 months or anything.
No,
like that.
It's nice.
Pretty much right after the show.
It's nice they're doing that because it doesn't lock some of the NXT fans out, so to speak, where they have to get Sling TV or Hulu, whatever provider they want. So that's good. I think they're doing it the right way. I'm excited.
Some SmackDown fans are going to be locked out. Dish Network, and it seems like every single week. I mean, my parents still have cable and Dish or whatever. I can't even remember what they have, but they still have the traditional ways. And it seems like every single week or every single month, one of these providers is always in a dispute with some of its channels. Right now, it is Dish Network that's currently in a dispute with Fox. So if you are a Dish Network subscriber, unless you bring out the rabbit ears, you're going to be locked out of SmackDown next week.
Why not have an antenna at this point?
This is kind of one of those things of these companies are making it hard not to cut the cord. Because even if you purchase them, you're still locked out. It's kind of funny because I was at my parents' house. I believe they have DirecTV. Now, they were going through a dispute with Fox about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was at their house, and I didn't know about the dispute because I cut the cord. And you go to turn on Fox, which they pay for, and it wasn't there because of the dispute. And you sit there and go, people are already cutting the cords when the channels are there. Now you're going to take the channels away and charge them. I mean, it just seems like...
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I've done.
Horrible business.
I've done this for years. I mean, I've always, pretty much since I moved in my house a few years ago, I've had antennas in my house. So anywhere I have a TV in my house, I bought antennas for the house. And it wasn't that much of a, it's not that expensive to buy a couple antennas. So I have it just in case something like that happens where I don't miss a football game or a NASCAR race. Or I think it was a couple years ago, Fox and Spectrum or Time Warner were in a dispute right before the Super Bowl. Or no, so I think maybe it was Files, one of the two. But I've always had an antenna, and then what I do is I have those streaming services. I bounce around whoever has the better deal. That's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, either way, it seems like bad business, but Dish Network fans, I guess, are going to be out for the first SmackDown. But hey, you know what? That's not... It's kind of funny, people being locked out of SmackDown. I don't know if you remember here in the central New York area, but as a child or as a teenager, I was locked out of SmackDown for a very long time.
Yeah, because we didn't have like a UPN.
UPN was just dropped. Well, it changed for the WB. And for all of us, I remember thinking that, I just thought, that means SmackDown's on WB. No, that means we got an entirely new station because UPN was an over-the-air station. It was replaced by WWE. We had no UPN until many years later when a very low signal UPN 14, which was the grandfather, I guess, of what is currently now CW6.
Yeah.
UPN 14 made its debut, I want to say, but it was still about a year and a half, 2 years later after we dropped.
Yeah, we didn't
UPN.
we didn't have it. I mean, I think at one point, if I'm not mistaken, for that time that we didn't have a local affiliate, I think we were picking up signals from Boston, I think. I want to say we were.
I had friends who paid extra for UPN on their Dish Network packages.
Gotcha. Okay.
That were like if you added $4.95, you could get like a regional package. And if you had, I didn't necessarily, I don't think we had the traditional cable at the time. I think maybe if you had cable, they might have replaced the UPN with a UPN out of Boston. But that's what my friends, they got a UPN out of New York City or something, because there was a time where if you had Dish, you could then purchase the local channels. And they purchased the local channels, which included a UPN out of like New York City or something.
I'll just say this. I mean, I know people that used to have the old black boxes back in the day. So if you like one of your neighbors would have a black box.
I had
and
friends tape SmackDown for me back in the day when we lost it. And then I remember, it was UPN 14. It was a really low signal. It went off. It was it was like a channel that went off the air. Like it had the UPN shows that were on in prime time, but it didn't have any of its local advertising or products yet. So after like 10 o'clock at night, it just went to static or a red screen or whatever. But that was back in the day when SmackDown was worth watching. Then when we got SmackDown back, I voluntarily gave it up for a little bit, but
Been there, done that, my friend.
so
Absolutely.
SmackDown, for the first time since being on UPN, returns to network television.
To the antenna. There we go.
Back to the antenna television.
that's
Everything makes its return. And it looks like, unlike when it was on UPN, because while UPN was network television, UPN was still considered a niche channel. Now, it's moving to Fox, which is a mainstream channel. So SmackDown, unlike before, it seems like be the flagship show of WWE. And nothing says that more than the announcement of what the announced teams are going to be for Raw and SmackDown coming up this week. How about the announced teams for SmackDown is going to have the great announced team. It's going to have Renee Young, Corey Graves, and Michael Cole, as we're used to. Now on Monday Night Raw, it is a complete overhaul.
Yeah,
Jerry Lawler
different.
is returning to Monday Night Raw, but as for who else you have,
Vic Joseph, I know
Vic Joseph moving
He's good.
over from 205 Live. And I think he might have had a minute or two on NXT, but for the most part, 205 Live.
He's filled in. Yeah, he's filled in.
And
on NXT.
he filled in that one time when Byron got attacked by the feet. No, was it Byron was sick?
No, Byron was sick, or I think Byron's father passed away.
Yes,
something
that
like
is correct.
Something like that.
Well, one of them filled in one time when Jerry Lawler got attacked by the Fiend as well when he was back on the announce team for the minute.
I think that was Booker. Was it Booker T? Maybe.
So
Regardless,
he's made his
good.
debut, but now he's not just gonna slide in there. He's gonna be the main voice.
Yeah, he's going to be the play-by-play guy.
He's going to be
Cole.
the main voice because did you see who they have coming to Monday Night Raw? Former NXT star. He made his debut not too long ago on 205 Live. He was an NXT star, former NFL player. Made his NXT, let's say, Performance Center debut in 2016, and he's been in NXT since 2016. In the NFL, he was Brennan Williams, but in WWE, he is known as, what is the name?
Dio Madden.
Dio Madden, that is right. So in the NFL, his real name, Brennan Williams, but Dio Madden goes from 205 Live, which I believe he recently has made his debut on 205 Live. Talk about the jump. Monday Night Raw, this was a big thing, Monday Night Raw. Now you have Dio Madden and Vic Joseph just out of the chute.
Well, here's the thing. Vic Joseph, he's a commodity. He's done really good in filling in. He's kind of done the pinch hitting, so to speak. He's done well. So I'm not surprised with Vic. I'm not even surprised with the King, honestly. I figured they'd bring him in at some point somewhere. This Dio was a little different. I'm not that familiar with him.
I don't understand. I guess my thing is I don't understand why you don't have. Corey Graves was doing both SmackDown and Raw. So exactly why we don't have both here. And what is the role now for Tom Phillips?
Tom Phillips or Byron.
Yeah.
Byron Saxton. That to me, I would have thought, honestly, I figured.
I would have thought, Tom Phillips, Byron Saxton, and Corey Graves. That'd be a Raw team, maybe.
I was honestly thinking King. I was thinking King across the board. I was thinking I thought it was going to be King, Saxton, Phillips. But they're, I don't know what they're going to do with Tom Phillips and Byron Saxton. That's something nothing's come out about that. I'm going to guess they're going to be maybe backstage interview people now. I don't know.
Well, you do have the show coming on FS1, which apparently they don't have a part of as right now. It's Renee Young and Booker T.
Yes.
Going to be a part of WWE Backstage, which is going to be a 1-hour show dedicated to all sorts of backstage talk and WWE talk on FS1 starting on Tuesdays.
Did you see who tried
at
out?
11 o'clock. Oh, well, there has been the words that CM Punk has tried out for WWE Backstage. I know that's where you're going there.
What do you, let me ask you. Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going. What do you think? Do you think this is going to happen? What are your thoughts?
He's at least come to a point now where he says never say never, and if the right thing strikes him, he's interested. I originally watched a interview with him where people were talking about his rumors to come back, and before he said absolutely no, never, not coming back, not interested. He still does say that he lost his zest for wrestling. But at the same time, he's not saying the never say never stuff anymore.
I think he's just transitioning to the commentary stuff because he has been doing stuff in MMA. I do know that. Mm-hmm. So I think
he's a part of that Walking Dead. I think Talking Dead. That was after the Walking Dead shows. So he's been part of some commentary and some talk about television before. So
there's a list of people here. I'm just going to read it here. According to Mike Johnson of PW Insider, he notes that Taz is a good name, by the way.
Taz currently has his morning show on CBS Sports Radio.
Yeah, Taz, Paige, Rey Mysterio, and the 1-2-3 kid, Sean Waltman.
I mean,
interesting. X-Pac.
yes.
Yeah.
So either way, these are all names that I'd be very curious to see. This Monday Night Raw thing, it's just going to be crazy because this upcoming week on Monday Night Raw from Phoenix, the season premiere, if you will. I mean, it's supposed to be a big episode, and it's just going to be strange. I guess I'm not so scared of Vic Joseph or anything like that, but to just have an entirely new broadcast team, it's going to feel like watching 205 Live, but with Hulk Hogan and Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins and all these people, the Monday Night Raw setup. So I guess this is the first time that I could think of where an entire announced team was brand new. I know obviously Jerry Lawler's been there years before, but either way, there's never been, they always, insert one person.
And they still have somebody there for a while. It's not like everybody's like, oh, yep, see you later.
It's not like you flip off Monday Night Raw one week with Michael Cole, Corey Graves, and Renee Young, and you turn on next week, and it's 3 brand new people.
I'm curious.
And brand new people who are pretty brand new, obviously Vic Joseph, but I mean, like, this isn't Tom Phillips moving over there. This isn't Byron. These are Vic Joseph, who's had a cup of coffee on the main roster.
I'll say this,
commentating here
Vic,
and there.
I'll say this.
And
I'm a big Vic Joseph guy.
Theo Madden, who I had to look up today, didn't realize he was the Byron Saxton of 205 Live, which really isn't saying a lot.
Yeah, I don't even know what that even means. But I will say this. I think Vic Joseph, I'm pretty high on him. I think he's really good. And every time I've seen him, I think he was doing NXT UK stuff. I've watched him do that. He's done a standout job. So I mean, he was at. I think if I'm not mistaken,
he deserves a promotion, but maybe throw him in there with Corey Graves and Renee Young.
Here's my thought, though: who's the better announced team, the Raw team or the NXT team?
The NXT team. Well,
I thought you were
going to say SmackDown. I was going to say SmackDown for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Has the top team, but yeah, I mean. NXT has got a great announced team: Nigel McGuinness, Mauro Ranallo, and Beth Phoenix.
That's great. That's a great team right there. I mean, that's the B team, so to speak. Yeah. I mean, nothing against the other individuals, because Vic Joseph's good. I'm just not sure how.
You're really high on this Vic Joseph.
He's good.
He's
good.
Had nothing bad to say. You're just very excited for Vic Joseph.
Yes, he's good. I mean, being a former broadcast major, getting my degree in broadcasting, I've watched this guy. He has the skill. I think he's been better than Tom Phillips for a while. So that's just me.
I guess I don't mind.
And Tom's not bad.
I don't mind Tom Phillips, but I guess the big thing is in WWE, you also have to have a character. And one thing I'll say about Vic Joseph that I will disagree with your greatness is that he is just kind of a standard because he's only been on 205 Live and he's only been calling things when he's been filling in here and there, but he doesn't have that like the Michael Cole. I mean, Michael Cole is a part of the show. I mean, Corey Graves has pretty much done it as well. Corey Graves and Renee Young are now showing it up. They are a part. That's Jerry Lawler, Michael Cole, Jim Ross back in the day. They were a part of the show. That's why you'd see Jim Ross in the ring getting stunned. I mean, you'd see him a part of the storyline.
Well, Michael Cole's been in how many storylines,
Yes. So to see Vic Joseph, who's more like a call it by the book, he doesn't have any sort of, vendettas. He doesn't have any sort of edge. That's what you have to have.
Not yet.
Not yet. I mean,
not yet.
That's what I'm saying. So turning on Monday Night Raw is going to be weird to not see somebody who's got a side.
I wouldn't get into it too much. I'll say this. I think it's going to be okay. I'm not worried about Vic. I'm worried about seeing the new guy. I mean, King, I think, is going to be fine. King's King. King's going to say what he says. I wish it was 90s, Attitude Era King. That was fun.
Yes. I mean, we're going to go from Monday Night Raw where, like, Seth Rollins comes out. You know what I mean? And it's like, your Universal Champion, Seth Rollins, and Corey Graves is like, all right, Michael Cole, why don't you get off his coattails for a minute, to a guy who's just going to be like, and there is the Universal Champion of WWE, Seth Rollins, making his way to the ring. And, this is Brock Lesnar. I've heard he is called the Beast Incarnate here on the USA Network. I mean, that's what we're going to be moving to, from one to that to the other. I'm curious to see, like you say, Vic Joseph get his character in line, where he starts to get in there, starts to go back and forth with Dio Madden, I guess, or Jerry Lawler.
So is Dio going to be is Dio going to be kind of like the Corey Graves now? Because we got to have a heel commentator, right?
I mean, I assume so.
I mean, that because I don't see Vic doing it.
And I don't see Lawler doing it.
No, Lawler's just kind of Lawler.
Lawler is not going to be a pro Bray Wyatt, especially after getting attacked by him. No.
Yeah, he's going to be rooting for Seth.
So it's going to be interesting either way. Monday Night Raw this upcoming week, the championship on the line. Seth Rollins defends against Rey Mysterio. Great match this past week on Monday Night Raw. That fatal 5-way to decide. Now, one thing I'll at least say, I get it. It's a season premiere or whatever, but one, maybe Hell in a Cell, and I know you don't want to push it up any further. Maybe it should have been pushed up a little bit further. Maybe these premieres should be taking place the week after Hell in a Cell, because it, at least from that championship perspective of Seth Rollins defending against Rey Mysterio, because what is this? They had a number one contender match to fight Seth Rollins prior to a pay-per-view that they're building up between Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins. Like, what is the point of that? I understand maybe having a championship match made last minute on the show. They kind of do that, but to actually have a number one contender match, like you're building it up like this is an actual credible championship match.
Yeah, here's my thing. I mean, it is odd timing. There's not much you can add to it. I mean, it's just odd timing.
It's odd timing because normally on your television shows, you have number one contender matches for the pay-per-views.
Yeah,
you know
true.
what I mean?
For sure.
But to have a number one contender match for the following Monday Night Raw, which is the week before a pay-per-view event in which he's already defending the title against somebody else, it just seems out of place.
It's odd. And to me,
it's like having a tournament all March long to decide, who the number one contender will be for the championship the week before WrestleMania, against a guy who's in a completely different storyline defending the belt at WrestleMania. You're having a King of the Ring tournament.
Well, speaking of King of the Ring, that was odd too, having that in a Monday Night Raw setting. That should have been honestly, on the pay-per-view. But
it did make a little more sense to have it kind of, and it built it up being a Monday Night Raw kind of its own thing. Monday Night Raw is 3 hours worth of programming. You got to do what you got to do. But I understand maybe having a championship match, but having the big built up number one contendership for this illustrious championship match, which is really a jobber, throw-in championship house show kind of match.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Out of all three shows this week, what did you like? What show did you like the most? I was loving NXT out of the three shows this week.
Yeah, SmackDown just kind of phoned it in for their final SmackDown before it hits the Fox network.
I mean, Raw had some moments. I thought it was decent. I thought it was okay.
Raw was decent. They opened up that brand new building, the Chase Center in San Francisco, before the Warriors even get to play one game there.
That was cool. That was interesting. So, I'm curious to see how this next week's going to be fun. We're going to have a lot to talk about next week.
Yes.
This is going to be very, very, very interesting. There's not much to talk about AEW-wise except shows coming next week. Here's my thing. Thank God for DVR.
Yeah,
because I'm watching NXT. Now I changed my mind. Maybe I'll watch AEW and watch NXT on record.
Yeah.
I might have to do that.
That's, I think, that's our new lives. And it kind of reminds me because earlier today, we were talking about or not earlier today, but on the previous show about the WCW Thunder that was in Syracuse finally being added to the network. I watched that myself.
Watched the whole thing.
You watched the whole thing.
I did.
And this is, and it brings me back because if you look at that crowd that was in Syracuse, you've gone to house shows in Syracuse and the types of crappy crowds that they get. So
awful.
To see a non-WWE show draw, obviously I think they probably put people on one side, but either way, that was still a decent crowd.
I was looking at it. It looked pretty full.
Yeah, it looked still way more full than a house show or anything like that.
And that was cool. They incorporated Mark Merrow on the show. That was cool.
And Ray Rinaldi sitting next to him.
Yes, and Ray Rinaldi's still alive. He's in his 90s now. He's still active in the boxing community.
Legend out of Syracuse,
I looked
New
him
York,
up because he looked older back then, and that was 20 years ago. And I'm like, I wonder if he's still alive. And there was an article just came out not too long ago, and it was talking about Ray he's like in his 90s now, still doing boxing and still, participating in the community. Obviously, speaking of community things, Mark Merrow's doing a great thing. He travels around the world and does travels around schools and stuff and does speeches and things like that.
From the Liverpool area?
Yeah, he's a Liverpool guy. And actually, a quick story on that. He was a really good football player at Liverpool High School. His coach, no joke, was George O'Leary, who used to coach Central Florida. So there's a lot of...
And Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech, yep. It was, and O'Leary's been around, so it was kind of cool. It's kind of interesting to see all those parallels right in our backyard. Back to the show itself, the David Arquette thing, man, that was.
That's legendary, whether you liked it or not. But it was just fun to harken back to a time when that building was full for a show that wasn't WWE.
It was a good show, too.
And that might be a time where we return to again. Could that be what it looks like when AEW comes to Syracuse on a Wednesday night?
You know what's going to happen? AEW is coming to Syracuse because they're going to go to these middle markets where these arenas are, 6,000 seats, 8,000 seats. And guess what? That's going to look great on TV. Just like looking at Thunder. Yeah. It was a packed crowd. Great crowd, by the way, on that show.
Could we be returning? I remember a lot of people wanted an XFL team in Syracuse when they were initially saying the XFL was coming back. I'll take an AEW show probably over an XFL team.
I'm in. Sign me up. And here's the thing. The difference is between the live shows, WWE live shows in Syracuse, and potentially an AEW TV recording here in Syracuse, I will be at that show. No doubt.
Well, I mean, I'd be at any live television show, AEW, New Japan Ring. I mean, if they're bringing TV to Syracuse, I'll be there, especially live. AEW, WWE's premiere week. We will talk all about it next week. We haven't really hammered out the details with Monday Night Raw, with SmackDown moving over to Fox.
We're still figuring this out.
When we're going to maybe change recording days of the show.
Yes.
But either way, we will talk everything on our next episode. Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, and Hell in a Cell. It's going to be a busy week of pro wrestling content. One of the most important weeks in professional wrestling history, a lot of people are saying. We'll see if it lives up to the hype. For Brandon the Icebreaker Clements, myself at K-Rock, Jared, follow the show at Heel to the Face. And until next episode, we'll see you.